Me in this morning as well, and good morning and Merry Christmas.
Good morning, Merry Christmas to you both.
Good to see you. What an interesting year you've had in terms of county business and just churn and trying to do the right thing for the right reasons and all of that stuff.
Well, we've all had an interesting year. We've all had an interesting
But
almost
you've
2
been in the
years.
headlines more than the rest of us. So there is that. But we want to talk positive stuff.
We do. Yep.
It's the day before Christmas Eve. New Year's coming. And we had a brief exchange of information, and we want to talk some positive things. The work of the county continues. It's still the great Yakima Valley, and we want to acknowledge some of that. So I will let you direct the conversation, Amanda.
Well, no, I appreciate it. It really is, we're all also during the Christmas time, especially, we want to think about things of hope. And there's certainly, celebrating the birth of Jesus is something that is a good yearly reminder of what we should have hope for. And, all we do is look around and see that, unfortunately, both, sometimes locally and, of course, statewide and nationally, it's just negative.
True.
And I think that you recognize that. And I think a lot of us, even in our own homes, if you think about it, some tense conversations you've had maybe even in your own household with someone who maybe has seen things in a different point of view than you, based off all of these things that are happening around us, and trying to take a step back and say, okay, we might not agree on this, but let's just concentrate on things that make us happy. And right now, there are a lot of things that I think that we can talk about, not just at COVID, that there are things to be hopeful for. In Yakima, there's a lot of hiring signs. Now, we can say, okay, that means that, we've got not enough people to work. And of course, there's that aspect of it. But the good news is that if you are looking for a job right now, and you are looking for a way to increase your career or expand your horizons or go to a different place, there are job opportunities all over the place in all forms and fashions that you could even dream of.
And not only that, but there's the workplace is different now as a result of what's going on, and you can make more money, and you can get a bonus, and you can get better accommodations. So there are some positives for workers that have occurred as a result of that for those people who do want to jump back in.
I was just speaking with our technology services director yesterday, and one of the positives that he was talking about is the flexibility for family. So a lot of us with kiddos, of course, with the negative aspects of COVID, what do we do with the kids? But the positive is the environment at work has changed in the sense that employers now acknowledge and embrace the idea that family is really important, the kiddos are really important. You know what? Giving someone time off if they feel like they want to say, hey, at 3 o'clock tomorrow, my kiddo has a basketball game, or I need to go pick up gymnastics practice or do something along those lines, but, I can be gone an hour. I'm willing to work a different time. Is there a way that we can work with that? Now employers are embracing that, saying, yeah, you take that hour, you go watch your kiddo, do flippies off the dock or whatever it might be. And that feels, you feel like you're appreciated. You feel like you're able to give back. You want to give back to whomever your employer is because they're recognizing that. And I think embracing that is something that has really changed. It's a positive thing that has come out of that.
That's a very excellent point. Because of all of this, employers don't think of you as much as a peg to drop in the slot, as a person who comes with their own accommodations and stuff. And as you appreciate them for who they are, then you have to appreciate the total package and allow for that. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about this particular job. Richard, you've got that kind of flexibility too, and I know that you have had in your previous careers too, is that if you need a window, you can have that window, and how much more satisfying life is without the stress that comes from having to worry about that and if it's going to be okay. I did a post yesterday. Frank Luntz is a pollster, analyst, whatever. He thinks corporate America maybe isn't quite ready for it. And that is the accommodation of people, whether 4 million people that quit their jobs in September, another 4 million in October. People want a different thing. The smart businesses, and I think that's who we're talking about here, are going to accommodate that.
There is a way to embrace it, and believe me, I worked growing up in the cherry orchards. I understand, you have to do the time, and it's not something that you can walk right into and expect someone to hand you that kind of a favor. You do need to earn it. There needs to be, I think there was another conversation we'd had recently where if you think about it, most people right now have a comfort level of being able to allow certain people to work from home because they know them, they've established their work ethic
proven
already.
Themselves, right.
Yeah, and so it's a lot easier if you know their work ethic, you know what they can do, and they followed through with it. I wouldn't say that you should expect necessarily walk into a job on the first day and say, hey, day number 2, I need to take off. They're, within reason. But to your point, I think corporate America will be faced with that because it is highly competitive out there.
Absolutely.
You ask anyone who owns a business right now, finding someone who is qualified, capable, applies for the job, shows up for the interview, actually wants the job, because it is competitive. As you say, pay is one thing. We've increased the wages for those entry-level positions. And, also we need to acknowledge it's not just that. It's the fact that we have, I think, a couple million baby boomers every year now who are retiring. Assumption being that they're kind of at that upper echelon of whatever business that they're working at. And so everyone moves up a rung. Fantastic. Great. People get to move up. Opportunity. But it's leaving because we don't have as many workers in America to enter into that workforce. We're not making babies like we used to. There just aren't literally the people to fill it. So how are we going to get smarter? And in some cases, you see places like McDonald's, not just because of the wages, but the lack of applicants. They're having to do things that are innovative and find ways to provide a service that we as consumers want, even in the absence of physical people to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's one aspect. To be positive as you look to change, if you're a career changer, or want some accommodations, there's a chance that is all out there for you. But I know you're not just a one-trick pony, Amanda McKinney. What else do you have up your sleeve?
Home values. And of course, I still keep tabs on this. There's a lot of people who, because of the perfect storm that happened, took advantage of the fact that property values in Yakima have gone up. Now, of course, that made entry-level homes rise as well. But if you already owned a home, you enjoyed a significant amount of equity. More equity was gained in the last year than even pre-recession 2008. And that is a huge thing. And with rates being low, there was a lot of opportunity for people to sell and maybe downsize and end up with a little more money in their retirement, or there was an opportunity for people to sell and purchase a home that they might not have been able to, a little bigger for the extra kiddos, or have mother and father-in-law come live with you. Again, low interest rates, and so you were able potentially to take that equity, move on to the next home that's bigger. Maybe it's got a little space for a bunny rabbit or something along those lines. Go 4-H. And there are things that we can do that we've had the opportunity to do because of the way things have shaken out. Now, I would say that rates are, definitely they're not going to stay this way forever. And I think as a nation, we should be concerned about what happens with the quantity of our debt and rising interest rates in the future. But again, trying to look for the positives. There's a lot of people who took advantage of consolidating credit card debt or student loans, made big impacts on their monthly income, how much they could spend.
I asked my wife if we could bring a bunny in, and she said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I was thinking about mid-September," and the conversation just ended right there. I can't understand we couldn't even have a conversation about it. So it's not always. Richard, you didn't even crack a smile at that. Come on, man.
I was a 4-H. I had a bunny. I'll do a 4-H plug because I had a call with him. One thing that is not known, I did not even know this. If you are someone who grew up with 4-H, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with, we did that. But now a lot of us don't live in a house where we have the space for it. And you think, well, gosh, my kids would love to do that, but where am I going to put this bunny, or where am I going to put this lamb? Well, there are still some fantastic business owners, or agricultural companies in town, or families who still have family farms that are very involved in leasing out, and sometimes at no cost, the space
for a critter.
And so my comment to them was, I had no idea. You should advertise that more.
Absolutely.
Because now that I know that there's a chance that there's someone out there who's got a little extra space, that's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, caring for another live animal and going through the process that 4-H or FFA provides you. I mean, talk about shepherding in the next generation of America.
Yep.
It is amazing opportunity.
Responsibility, showing up, doing what you need to be done when it needs to be done. All of those work ethic values that you can learn early on when you're caring for another
budgeting
creature. Yes.
Saying goodbye.
Right, and saying goodbye, which is all hard lessons that need to be learned.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty exciting. Only got a couple minutes left, so what else you got?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the positive things related to COVID. And I think that that is something that I have really, really tried to push for this last year. There are so many options that we have available. We have a vaccine that works. It doesn't work as well as we'd hoped in the beginning, but it does keep people from ending up in the hospital and, God forbid, passing away from COVID at the same rate as if they weren't vaccinated, especially if you were someone who was particularly vulnerable to COVID. We have treatments. I would love to see us continue to tout those treatments. I pushed very hard to get monoclonal antibody treatments into Yakima. Thankfully, that is here. It is something that is commonplace now. The next thing, just yesterday, Pfizer's pill did receive the emergency authorization use. This pill is a miracle pill. If administered within 5 days, anyone who receives this pill has a 0% chance of dying. And the hospitalization rate was, I think, less than 10% of them even had to go to the hospital. It needs to be studied like anything. Emergency authorization use, it's a choice. You got to decide whether or not. Your doctor will have that conversation with you. But it is something to celebrate. We do have all of these tools. We also have something to celebrate, which is natural immunity. And there are hundreds of millions of people around the world who also have natural immunity. And that is something that I think that we have seen embraced in other parts of the world with regard to policies. And I would really love to see that returning, that kind of common sense way to approach this, because, every infectious disease doctor, including down here right in Yakima, says that this is something that we're going to deal with as a global community for years. So we have to find ways to embrace the tools we have and move forward with hopeful hearts. That's the ticket.
Now there's an ad campaign for you for the unvaccinated who have natural immunity. Natural immunity, embrace me.
Really?
What do you think?
I think I got a better chance of getting Miss September in the house than you do of getting embraced, is what I think. But that's a story for another time. Those are all excellent points to keep in mind and that get lost in the conversation of the pull and push of vaccines and all of that. We know the Supreme Court's going to hear the case now about the Biden mandates, and that might, end that conversation once and for all. But there's, as you say, we do have treatments. They are available. If we get the testing that the president's talking about, with the ability to test and know right away within that window, and the pill becomes available, and that works like we hope, there's plenty of reasons to think positively. And right now, as a nation, we're sort of like we're reacting to Omicron as though it's the worst case of Delta. And we know that that's not true. And so, just I guess one of the things that I would be hopeful for in the new year is more accurate messaging all across the board. But
or at least a variant that dies out without the big impact that was assumed. That would be nice to find out, as we've talked about this week, a month from now, that it wasn't the big deal that it was made out to be.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, in the absence of hope is fear.
Yes.
And so we have to light the way.
This is the season of hope, right?
Yeah,
so
let's embrace it.
Focus on hope.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing, question for you, and that is, as you look ahead to the county's agenda and schedule, separate from medical issues, what do you see in the year to come that you want to be working on and all of that?
Another thing to be very hopeful for, the American Rescue Plan Act did give a major injection of funds into our community. Yakima County alone will receive, by the end of next year, $48 million. A lot of the cities and towns are also receiving significant amount of funds. So my proactive steps right now has been to really work on a plan to involve the community with feedback that we will start rolling out here in the first 6 months to determine how are we going to spend this money and be good stewards of our taxpayers. We're all federal taxpayers. Right. But how do we make a big impact? How do we partner with other businesses, corporations, and nonprofits who are already doing great things? How do we invest in our infrastructure? And I really would like to see us invest in our infrastructure in meaningful ways. I love the earth. I love clean air. I love all of those things. But I also love the idea of instead of focusing on trying to get the battery-operated vehicles necessarily as a priority, I'd like to focus on making sure that we try to get people off maybe bad wells and get clean drinking water. And that is something that we can do that, let's say all tides, high tides lift all boats. That's something, where we can really think about how do we improve our infrastructure as a county to improve the overall public health, which also in turn promotes more opportunity for development. If it's easier to connect to resources and utilities, it becomes more affordable for people to develop. It becomes more affordable to buy those homes that are being developed. So that's the way that I would like to approach this, but it'll be something that it's an honor to have a little bit of involvement in this kind of implementation that is going to have such an impact, a huge impact. So I'm very excited for it, and it'll hopefully bring a lot of hope.
And in the midst of all of that, you've got to run for re-election again,
yes.
right? Thank you, redistricting committees. County Commissioner Amanda McKinney, always fun to have you in.
Merry Christmas.
Not only just a great county servant, I'm going to call you a KIT pal from our olden days.
I love you guys.
So good to see you. Merry Christmas to Dave and the family, and we look forward to more conversations as the plans come together, and we look for ways to make the most out of what has fallen into our laps. Boy, that'll make a huge difference for the long term for all of us if we do it right. So
it must.
Good on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone.